On April 22, 1995, 17-year-old Matthew Hamill was struck and killed by a drunk driver. The first part of this story is about Matt's life and how he impacted others. The second part is about Matt's death and how that affected those that cared about him the most. The story is told by Matt's mother, Louise. This production is dedicated to the life of Matthew Philip Hamill.
A 34-year-old Barnegat Township man faces a litany of charges, including death by auto in connection with the weekend hit-and-run death of a Tuckerton youth. Police determined that alcohol consumption was a substantial contributing factor in the accident, and the driver was brought before Superior Court Judge Edward Turnbach on charges of death by auto, reckless driving, and driving while intoxicated. The victim, 17 years old, was inline skating on the side of Route 9 when he was struck and killed by a pickup truck. The driver allegedly fled to Lakewood, where he was arrested. In addition to the previous charges, the driver was charged with leaving the scene of an accident causing death and tampering with evidence for allegedly removing parts of his vehicle after the accident. Atlantic City Press, April 25, 1995.
That 17-year-old youth was Matt Hamill. And he is a father, and he has brothers, and he has a ton of friends that miss his guidance and direction. And mostly, he has a mother, and she's here today to tell you about Matt's mission.
Hi, my name is Louise Hamill, and I want you to know I'm blessed to be here. And this is my son. Matthew was the youngest of my 3 sons, and he was a very special person. We took this picture on Easter Sunday, 2 weeks before he died. He was 17. And on that same roll of film, we had also taken this picture. Matthew wouldn't smile for baseball pictures. And he was the kind of kid that always had a smile on his face. But as he would tell me, "Mom, I have to look serious and professional." Put this one over here. Baseball was the second love of Matthew's life. He grew up in Little League, and at the time of his death was playing shortstop and pitcher for his high school's JV team. He had a collection of baseball cards, like I'm sure many of your sons do, up to here. He was a real natural shortstop. Growing up in Little League, all the parents would say so. But a lot of kids love baseball. What made Matt so unique, I think, is the way he combined his love for people with his love for baseball. He was the kind of kid that, and I remember this on an extremely hot summer day, 12 years old, he was out on the baseball field all afternoon, and as he told me later, he was helping his friend get his swing down just right. He was the kind of kid that would take a new player on the baseball team or a younger player that other kids were ignoring, and Matt would take that kid under his wing for that season, help him out and befriend him. He was the kind of kid that during a bad game, when the coach would be yelling and the kids would be kind of down because they're not doing too good, Matt would be the one that would be smiling and shouting out encouraging things to the team to, try to help them to do better. So much so that his high school, Pinelands Regional, dedicated the varsity baseball field to him after he died. And they made a beautiful sandblasted sign and put it up, and it's now called the Matthew P. Hamill Memorial Field. The first love, however, of Matthew's life was for God. One night at age 4, at the dinner table, Matthew informed us that he wanted to be a missionary when he grew up. And I remember when he said it, I got this strong feeling inside that this was a call from God on his life. And then in 3rd grade at Bethel Christian School, standing on this little stage with, it was a Christmas program, he had a little green robe on, and he announced to the audience and to his school that indeed God did have a call in his life to be a missionary. And then one day, he was 12, we were in the living room, and I had to fill out a form about Matt for church as they were preparing to celebrate the graduates, and he was going to graduate 6th grade. So I said to him, Matt, what should I put here under future plans? And he said, put down second baseman for the Oakland A's, his favorite team. So I did. And then I kind of meekly said to him, well, what about missionary? And he thought a moment and said, put down N or missionary. So I smiled and wrote it just as he said it. That night I went into his bedroom to put wash away in his dresser. And he was laying on his bottom bunk bed, reading his Bible and praying, something he did every night of his life. And as I finished up, I heard, come here, Mom. And I went over and I sat on his bed. And I'll never forget the serious look on his face. And he said to me, you know, under future plans? I replied, yes. He said, cross out second baseman for the Oakland A's. And I said, why? I said, did the Lord just let you know that, yes, it is to be missionary? And he just nodded and quietly said, yes. I remember one night at the dinner table again, it was sometime during his junior year, this age, the year he died, he said something unforgettable. We were just talking, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he says, sometimes I say nice things to the lunch ladies. Now, I know these women are older ladies, so I said to him, why do you do that? And he said, to make them feel good. 2 days after Matthew died, I got a phone call from a woman who identified herself as Ruthie, the lunch lady. And she said, I just have to tell you what your son said to me every day in the lunch line. She said he would hold up his finger and say, you're number one. That's the kind of kid Matthew was. Matt was very diligent about his studies. He would come home from baseball practice, 5 o'clock. And we'd be getting ready to eat dinner. Not Matt. He'd want to go in his bedroom, do all his homework first, then come out later and eat. Now, how many teenagers do you know want to do that? And as much as he tried, he had never achieved straight A's until, would you believe, 2 weeks before he died, on his last report card, Matt got his first set of straight A's. A gift, I think. Also, Matt was a junior when he died in April. And up until then, he had never been chosen Student of the Month. Matthew had been chosen Student of the Month earlier that month of April. Another gift. Matthew was such a good son, very obedient, compliant, loving. He was the kind of kid that if we ever argued, which was rare, and if he had said anything even slightly disrespectful, he'd turn, walk away, get maybe 3, 4, 5 steps, stop, turn around and look at me and say, I'm sorry, Mom. Matthew never drank, never smoked, never did drugs, told me he never wanted to do those things. He was just the kind of kid you never worried about. As a matter of fact, after he died, I had parents tell me that they never worried when their kids were with Matt. And I just want to share a few special memories that I have of Matt and I together. My earliest that I like to share is when he was 2 years old. I had just finished putting some wash away in my bedroom, and I came back out into the kitchen, and I stopped in the doorway. As I look, and he's got the refrigerator door wide open, a dozen eggs out of the carton out of the refrigerator. He had gotten my red plastic bowl out of the cabinet, wooden spoon out of the drawer. A couple of the eggs did manage to get into the bowl. Some did not, splat on the floor. And he is squatting over this bowl and stirring like crazy. And he hears me come in, and he looks up and he says, making eggs, Mom. It was too cute. I could not get upset. Because Matt was my youngest, I had him home alone with me for a year. And you know, if you have 3 children, sometimes it's hard to get that quality time with one. So it was nice. I remember doing things like packing up his little yellow Fisher-Price lunchbox, and we'd go out in the backyard under the dogwood tree and have a picnic together. And then afterwards, he'd always climb the little dogwood tree. And every day after lunch, we'd go out, if it was nice weather, into the street, because I live in a very quiet neighborhood, and we'd play wiffle ball together. Maybe that's why he likes baseball so much, I don't know. And one special memory I have, when he was 4, I went to visit, I took him with me to a nursing home to visit this 80-some-year-old lady named Mary from our church who was dying in the nursing home. And the three of us, after I read the scriptures, we had communion together. I had bought bread and grape juice, and we had communion together, and then we sang Amazing Grace together. And it was just such a picture of this 4-year-old boy, this 80-some-year-old lady, and me, and here she's dying, and we just all sang Amazing Grace together. And none of us could sing very well, but it was just so precious. And then to jump up to this time when he was 17, I just have 2 more memories I want to share. I had just picked him up from Mystic Islands, casual game of hockey with his friends, and we were in the car alone, and we'd been talking, and then all of a sudden he says to me, "You know, Mom, I don't know any other kid that can talk to their mom the way I can talk to you." And when he said that, it was like, wow, what did I ever do to deserve that? A gift for me. And then my most bittersweet and yet favorite memory happened about a month before he died. We were home alone in the living room. I was sitting on the couch folding wash. Matthew was sitting on the love seat. And I had our country music CDs on shuffle. Now, you just don't know what's going to come on when they're on shuffle. And how many people in here like country music? Raise your hand. Oh, good. I don't know what's the matter with the rest of you. But I bet you all know Garth Brooks, right? Right? Okay. Well, Garth Brooks had a big hit out that previous year called The Dance. And it had become my husband's and my song. And the kids had seen us dance to it in the living room. Every time it came on, if we weren't busy, we would dance to it. So just teasing Matt when it came on, and I said to Matt, "Oh, darn it, Dad's not home." But Matt surprised me with, "I'll dance with you, Mom." 17-year-old boy telling this to his mother, right? So I just figured, well, he's probably just being typical sweet, nice Matthew, but maybe really doesn't want to. So I said, "Oh, that's okay, Matt, you don't have to." Well, I thank the Lord now. He insisted. I even remember his exact words. He said, "Come on, how often does a mom get to dance with her teenage son?" So in the middle of the living room, mother and son danced. And I even remember what we talked about. His first prom was coming up, his junior prom. And I asked him if he was going, and he said yes. And I said, "Well, have you asked anybody yet?" And he said, "Well, I have it narrowed down, but I haven't asked anybody yet." Matthew never got to go to his first prom. But my husband and I did. The sweet kids in his class invited us to go and chaperone. They wanted us to be there. So we went, and when it came time to vote for the king and queen, a lot of those kids wrote in Matthew's name. And Matthew came in first runner-up to the king. So at first, the adults didn't know what to do with that. But what they decided to do is they asked my husband if he would come and take his place, Matthew's place, in the court. So they had this little white fenced-in, cute little area for the court, and they went and they took pictures, and then after that, they played the theme song. That's when they played the theme song to the prom, and they danced. And unbeknownst to me, they started playing, and it was The Dance by Garth Brooks. And I'm telling you that nobody knew that story except me and Matt, my husband, and the Lord. It was really something. And then I guess I want to backtrack maybe 2 weeks earlier to April 22nd, 1995, Matthew's last day on earth. And I remember a lot about that day. I remember him going out into the garage and lifting weights after breakfast. And I remember it was a beautiful, warm, gorgeous day for April. And I was out back laying out getting some sun, and Matthew decided to do the same thing, but he went around to the side of the house and got some sun. On his way back in, he stopped and talked to me. He was starting to go in, and then he changed his mind. He came and started talking to me. And I'm so glad he did, because I have this wonderful memory of looking up from my lounge chair at him, and his face was just all bright and shiny and smiley. He was so excited. Matt had 2 very close best friends, Joe and Aaron. Well, the night before, he had spent the night at Joe's house, and he goes, "Mom," he goes, "last night when I spent the night at Joe's house, I discovered a new pitch." All 3 of those boys played baseball together on the team. He goes, "I discovered a new pitch, and Joe couldn't hit it. And Joe said to me, 'Matt, you got to teach me that pitch.'" And then he said to me, "I can't wait to go to school Monday to teach the guys on the team the new pitch." which he never got to do. He also got to play a casual game of basketball with some of his friends that day. And then at one moment, I remember him being on the couch, and he said to me something that I have to preface. Matt was in a youth group, and all the Methodist church youth groups used to meet in Ocean City. They have like a weekend once a year in September. So anyway, Matt says to me, "Mom, this September when the youth groups meet in Ocean City, I'll be 18. I'll be able to be a counselor to the younger kids." And he was really sincerely excited about that. And then it's funny, the things that stick in your mind. The next thing I remember is at the dinner table, he used to sit next to my husband, and I remember my husband taking Matt by the shoulder and shaking him, teasing him, because I made him eat a baked potato that night. He did not like baked potatoes. If I had known it was going to be his last meal, believe me, I wouldn't have given him a baked potato. The next thing I remember is, as I was doing the dinner dishes, I heard a ruckus outside, so I went over to the living room windows and I looked out, and there was Matthew and his brother, my middle son, Kurt, and several of the boys from around the neighborhood playing wiffle ball together. And these are like 17, 18-year-old kids. And I hadn't seen that in a while, not wiffle ball. And I just remember looking and thinking, gee, that's nice, that's sweet. And then the next thing you know, Matthew burst in the door, ran down the hall, and I remember peering around the corner and looking and watching and waiting, and he comes back out with his rollerblades and his black backpack. And I said to him, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going rollerblading with Aaron." And you know, for the life of me, I cannot, that night it happened, I couldn't remember what, if anything, I said to him after that. Because if I did say something after that, they were my last words to him, and I don't remember what they were. And then the next thing you know, he was out the door. I never got to say goodbye. I never got to hug him or kiss him. I don't even think I told him I loved him that day. So anyway, but my husband remembers his last words to him. My husband told me later he was outside when Matt came out, and he was working on his car. My husband had just bought Matthew his first car 2 days before. Matt had his license. He had just gotten his license, but Matt had never gotten to drive the car yet because it didn't have the tags on it. But I remember when we bought it home, I remember him sitting in it and turning the key on, and I remember looking through the windshield at him as he was doing it, and he was just sitting there, proud as a peacock, you know, smiling, all happy. And my husband said to him, when he saw him, he said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going rollerblading with Aaron." And my husband's last words to him were, "Be careful." What happened after that, as Aaron later told me, was that there is this long straightaway just outside of Tuckerton. Anybody know where Penny's restaurant is outside of Tuckerton? Okay, it happened right in front of Penny's restaurant on Route 9. It's a long straightaway, a lot of visibility, huge, wide shoulders. And Aaron told me that the whole entire time, from the time they left my house to where it happened, they had been rollerblading together, absolutely together the whole time on the shoulder of the road. Aaron said, until seconds, just seconds before it happened, Aaron just decided to cross the road. So Matt was there on this side. What happened was there was an older couple in a car, and they were going to turn left into Penny's restaurant. They were standing still because their car was still because they had to wait. Their blinker was on, but a car was coming this way. While they're waiting, a man in a truck who was drinking, I guess he didn't want to wait, so he made a right pass on the shoulder of the road. You all know that's illegal to do that, right? To pass on the shoulder of the road. When he did that, Matthew was right there, and he was struck and killed instantly. But you know, if it had to happen, you would not believe how glad I am it was instant. If I had to think that he was laying there for even a minute or two, I don't think I could handle that. So I believe Matt was in the arms of Jesus before he knew what hit him. I really do. So anyway, it was a hit and run. The guy took off. But you know the older couple I was telling you about? I met him 3 months later in court, and he came up and told me this. He said that he immediately went and parked, and he ran over to Matt. He was the first one to be there. And he said something I kind of already knew. He said Matt was already gone. And he said, but I got to tell you something. He said, Matt had the most peaceful look on his face, like he didn't have a care in the world. And he said, and then I closed his eyes. I don't know how I got it together enough to thank him, but I did. They later found the man in Lakewood, which is like a 45-minute ride from where it happened. He had a BAC of, I believe, 1.19. They estimated that, I believe, to be 0.17 at the time that he killed Matt. His record, not including what happened with Matt, just up to that point, was 57 points on his driving record. Several prior DWI charges. He was driving without a license, without registration, fictitious tags. He spent 3 years and 8 months in prison, and he was released January 1st, 1999. What I wanted to share next, lastly, is really the most difficult to convey. It's near impossible, so I can only just mention a few things. What life has been like since this happened. You never want to know what it's like to have to pick out your son's coffin. And you know when we had to do that? The very next day. 11 o'clock, I think it was, that next morning, when I'm still not registering, still in shock. I'm in this warehouse full of coffins. I remember just looking up and saying, I'll take the blue one, because I figured blue for boys, you know. We had to watch 6 of his closest friends be his pallbearers, kids ages 15 to 17 being pallbearers. For months, my husband and I felt like we had what I can only describe as an actual physical hole in our hearts. I mean, it felt like you could take your fist and just put it in there. Our family isn't the same anymore. It was like Matthew was the bright spot of our family, and he was gone. We were a family of 5. It felt full. You know, my family felt full. And Matt was gone, and then my oldest son, who was in college and dating by then, he was like always gone. And Kurt, my middle son, who was very affected by this, they were closest in age. He couldn't be home. He was never home. He just couldn't stand to be home, the memories and all. So it was like my husband and I were home alone all the time. And it was just like we went from this full family of 5 to just the 2 of us. And then eating at the dining room table, forget it. It was like having to look at Matthew's empty chair was so painful that we started eating on TV trays in the living room. And I remember on holidays and stuff like that, we'd have people over, invite everybody we could think of to fill the house up. I think we were hoping to fill the void, but it never worked. It means that every Sunday after church, we go and visit Matthew's grave. It means that I still sleep with Matthew's teddy bear every night. I tried giving it up once, and it lasted for 3 days, and I had to get it back. So I think it's a permanent fixture now on my bed. Matthew will never know what it's like to have a wife or children. We'll never get to have grandchildren through him. It's like when his life ended, a big, bright part of our future ended too. For a solid year, we had no joy. And it's not like it came flooding back after a year either. You know, it trickled back. And yet I can tell you in all honesty that I have had peace since the night it happened, a peace that I really can't explain except to tell you that I knew it was from God, and because I knew Matt was in heaven with Jesus. It's a pain that by the grace of God does lessen as time goes on, but I don't believe it'll ever go away. My greatest comfort is that I know I'm going to see Matthew again. And you know what the first thing is that we're going to do? Can you guess? Dance. You got it. Dance. And somehow I know he knows. Well, I suppose you could call what I've just given you, if you want it to be technical, the perspective of a mother of a victim. Right now I'm going to read you a poem that gives you the perspective of a victim. Only in this case, it's a girl. It's called Prom Night. I went to a party, Mom. I remembered what you said. You told me not to drink, Mom, so I drank soda instead. I felt really proud inside, Mom, the way you said I would. I didn't drink and drive, Mom, even though others said I should. I know I did the right thing, Mom. I knew I would get home in one piece because of the way you raised me, Mom, so responsible and sweet. I started to drive away, Mom, but as I pulled onto the road, the other car didn't see me, Mom, and it hit me like a load. As I lie here dying, Mom, I wish you'd get here soon. How come this happened to me, Mom? And life burst like a balloon. There is blood all around me, Mom. Most of it is mine. I hear the paramedics say I'll be dead in a short time. I just wanted to tell you, Mom, I swear I didn't drink. It was the others, Mom. The others didn't think. He didn't know where he was going, Mom. He was probably at the same party as I. The only difference is, Mom, he drank, and I will die. Why do people drink, Mom? It can ruin your whole life. I'm feeling sharp pains now, Mom. I'm near the end of this life. Tell my brother not to cry, Mom. Tell Daddy to be brave. And when I go to heaven, Mom, write Daddy's little girl in my grave. Someone should have told him, Mom, not to drink and drive. If only they'd have taken the time, I would still be alive. My breath is getting shorter, Mom. I'm becoming very scared. Please don't cry for me, Mom, because when I needed you, you were there. I have one last question, Mom, before I say goodbye. I didn't ever drink, Mom, so why am I to die? This is the end, Mom. I wish I could look you in the eye to say these final words, Mom. I love you, and goodbye. I've been doing this for 3.5 years. It took me 3 years to be able to get through that poem without crying. And now you're going to hear from Matthew. When Matthew was like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, he would walk around the house making up songs to God, making up praise songs to God. Now, he couldn't sing real well, but it came from his heart. And I went to tape him one day, and I didn't have a blank tape in the house. So you know how there's like a little bit of space at the end of a professional tape? So I have 1 minute of Matthew singing at age 5.
Jesus is a good to me. I love you. I love you. You're so good. I love you, Lord. You're so good to me. I love you, Lord. You're so good. I love you, Lord. You're so good. I love you, I love you, I love you because you are Jesus. I love you, I can't wait till to go up to heaven to stay up with you, heavenly Lord. I love Lord, you're so good, you're so good to me. I love you, Lord, you're so good because you made sun ducks and you made fish in the clouds, in the dark, in the...
When I was carrying Matthew, I prayed about what to name him. He's the only child I had that I prayed about what to name him because I hadn't been a Christian earlier. And I knew I wanted it to come from the Bible. So I prayed about a name, and Matthew is what came to me very strongly. So I decided on his first name to be Matthew. And then I prayed about a middle name, and Philip came to me pretty strongly. So I named him Matthew Philip. Matthew and Philip were two of Jesus' apostles. I found out shortly after Matthew was born that Matthew means gift of the Lord. And I just found out a few years ago that Philip was the first missionary. I like to call what I'm doing here Matt's mission. I'd like to close now with a video that my brother just made for me. to use for this. And it's a 3-minute video of Matthew growing up.
Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above. For a moment, how could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And I'm glad I didn't know when it all would end, the way it all would go.
I accepted the greatest gift, Jesus, when I was 4 years old. My mom had told me about Jesus, and I wanted to accept his gift of salvation and know more about it. I know that the Lord wants me and has already called me to be a missionary. I'm looking forward to the day when I can go to another land to tell others about the greatest gift that was ever given Jesus. Will you pray with me that God will raise up many teachers, preachers, and missionaries of God?
I held everything.
That's a hustle, man.
If I only know
Did you get that on film?
how the king would fall. So I might have changed it all. And
Thank
I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Lord, our better left to change. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. It's my life, it's better left to change. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Hi, Matt.
Stop. When you get to a certain age, you just get one.
Meeting and our thanks and our praise to God would not be complete without a testimony to Matthew's faith in the God who loved him and who gave him that smile and that joy.
Looking at Matthew's empty plate, his fat gut.
Please remember, Matthew, don't drink and drive.